Part 1. The call that changed the morning. Some emergency calls last only a few seconds, yet those few seconds can reveal that something is terribly wrong. Just after 1 o'clock in the morning, a 911 dispatcher received a call from a woman whose voice sounded unusually tense. She managed to ask for help, but before she could explain what was happening, the line suddenly went silent. The dispatcher immediately tried calling back. There was no answer. Moments later, patrol officers were sent to the address to conduct a welfare check. At that point, very little was known. There had been no detailed explanation, no confirmed injuries, and no clear indication of what was waiting behind the front door. Only one fact was certain. Someone had tried to call for help. The neighborhood appeared calm as officers arrived. Porch lights illuminated quiet driveways, and nothing outside suggested that the home would soon become the center of a major police operation. Following standard procedure, officers approached carefully and announced their presence. For several long moments, nobody responded. Then a man's voice came from inside the house. He said everything was fine. He insisted there was no emergency and told officers there was no reason to come inside. But the incomplete 911 call made it impossible for officers to simply leave. Instead of forcing the situation, they chose patience. They continued speaking with the man from a safe distance, hoping to understand what had happened inside the house. As the conversation continued, dispatch gathered more information. Records indicated that several children were believed to be inside the residence, along with other family members. That discovery immediately raised the stakes. Supervisors were notified, and additional officers quietly arrived to support the scene. Despite the growing police presence, everything remained surprisingly calm. There were no loud commands. No rushing. No dramatic movements. The priority was simple: resolve the situation peacefully. Negotiators soon joined the response. Their role was different from that of patrol officers. Instead of giving orders, they focused on building communication and reducing tension. For nearly every difficult incident, conversation is the safest option. Minute after minute, the negotiators listened more than they spoke. Sometimes the man answered. Sometimes he remained silent for several minutes. Every response was carefully analyzed. His tone changed throughout the night. At times, he sounded calm. At other moments, confused. Those changes made it difficult to predict what he might do next. Hours passed. The first signs of sunrise slowly appeared over the neighborhood. Residents began noticing police vehicles parked several streets away. Although many still had no idea why officers were there, command staff continued reviewing every available piece of information. Maps of the property, public records, possible exits from the house, medical teams quietly prepared nearby in case they became needed. An armored rescue vehicle also arrived, but remained out of sight. No one wanted its presence to increase the tension. Every decision was made with one goal in mind: bring everyone out safely. Negotiators believed progress was still possible. The man continued speaking from inside. Although he refused to leave the room, he remained engaged in conversation. That gave officers hope that, as long as communication continued, there was still an opportunity to avoid a dangerous confrontation. But incidents like this rarely follow a predictable path. Shortly after sunrise, officers noticed subtle changes. The conversation became less consistent. Long pauses appeared between responses. Several questions went unanswered. Nobody outside knew exactly what had changed. Inside the command vehicle, supervisors quietly discussed their options. Should they continue waiting? Should they attempt another strategy? Or should they prepare for the possibility that the situation might suddenly change? Nobody wanted to rush a decision. Patience had already prevented the situation from escalating several times, but every passing minute also increased the uncertainty. The tactical team remained ready, but stayed out of sight. Medical personnel checked equipment once again. Drone operators reviewed possible flight paths. Everything was prepared. Even though everyone hoped none of it would be necessary. Then the silence became impossible to ignore. For the first time in hours, repeated attempts to communicate received no response at all. Officers exchanged brief glances. Something inside the house felt different. The calm that had lasted all morning suddenly became much heavier. Nobody knew exactly what would happen next, but everyone understood that the incident had entered a completely new phase. Part 2. When patience began to run out. Early morning. The operation had already lasted several hours. What had started as a routine welfare check had quietly grown into one of the department's most carefully coordinated responses. Officers remained in position around the property, but from a distance the neighborhood still looked peaceful. Most residents had no idea what was unfolding just a few houses away. Inside the mobile command vehicle, supervisors continued reviewing every available detail. Each update was discussed carefully. Every possible outcome was considered. The goal had not changed since the first patrol unit arrived: resolve the situation without putting anyone at unnecessary risk. Negotiators made another attempt to re-establish communication. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then, finally, a voice answered. The conversation resumed. But something was different. The man who had been willing to talk throughout the night now sounded increasingly distant. His answers became shorter, and at times they seemed disconnected from the questions being asked. Experienced negotiators recognized the change. Every pause was intentional. Outside, specialized units quietly adjusted their positions. Members of the tactical team remained hidden from direct view, ready to respond only if absolutely necessary. Medical personnel checked equipment once again, while supervisors coordinated with dispatch to make sure every officer on scene had the latest information. The operation was moving forward one careful step at a time. Inside the neighborhood, the atmosphere felt almost surreal. School buses had begun their morning routes several streets away. People left for work, unaware of the growing police presence hidden thus beyond the corner. From the outside, nothing appeared unusual. But behind the perimeter, every officer knew the situation could change in seconds. As more information became available, investigators confirmed that family members were still believed to be inside the residence. That remained the department's biggest concern. Negotiators continued encouraging the man to come outside voluntarily. No deadlines were given. No unnecessary demands were made. Instead, they reminded him that every peaceful decision would make the situation safer for everyone involved. For a brief moment, it seemed to be working. The man acknowledged several requests. His tone became calmer. Officers listening through their radios cautiously hoped progress was finally being made. But optimism inside critical incidents can disappear quickly. Without warning, communication stopped again. 1 minute passed, then another. Repeated attempts received no response. No movement could be seen from outside the home. Supervisors gathered for another quick discussion. Every option carried risk. Continuing to wait meant remaining uncertain about the condition of everyone inside. Acting too quickly could create unnecessary danger. Neither choice was easy. As time continued passing, additional resources quietly arrived. A drone team prepared equipment that could later help officers better understand the layout of the property if needed. Traffic around the neighborhood remained restricted. Nearby residents were politely asked to avoid the immediate area. The operation expanded, but the atmosphere remained remarkably disciplined. Nobody rushed. Nobody shouted. Every instruction over the radio was calm, precise, and professional. The hours of preparation reflected one simple reality: successful operations are often built on patience rather than speed. Then came another unexpected development. Faint sound from inside the home caught the attention of officers positioned near the front of the residence. Nobody could immediately identify what it was. The information was quietly relayed to command. Negotiators attempted once again to make contact. This time there was no answer. Several officers exchanged quick glances. The tactical commander carefully evaluated the situation before giving new instructions. No one would move unless absolutely necessary. Every decision had to consider the possibility that innocent people could still be inside. Seconds felt unusually long. The neighborhood remained silent. Even radio traffic slowed as everyone focused on the same house. Inside the command vehicle, maps remained spread across the table. Live camera feeds were monitored continuously. Supervisors reviewed the safest options if the operation entered a new phase. Nobody wanted that moment to arrive, but everyone understood it might. Then, without any warning, the quiet atmosphere surrounding the home changed. Officers immediately recognized that something inside had shifted. Additional units moved into prepared positions. Medical teams relocated closer to the operation. Negotiators made one final attempt to restore communication. Silence. At that moment, commanders realized they could no longer rely solely on conversation. A carefully planned tactical response began taking shape. Every officer knew their assignment. Every movement had already been rehearsed. The objective remained exactly the same as it had been from the beginning: protect everyone inside the home and bring the incident to a safe conclusion whenever possible. As specialized officers prepared for the next stage of the operation, nobody could predict how the next few minutes would unfold. The calm morning that had lasted for hours was about to give way to the most critical stage of the entire incident, and from that point forward, every decision would matter.